Today's episode is sponsored by Manscaped. With beach season right around the corner, if you're looking to upgrade to the most well-engineered body trimmer on the market, stick around to the end of the show because I've got a promo code just for you. It seems like every single year, there's a receiver that slips through the cracks into the second round for one reason or another that ends up being way more valuable than many of the first rounders drafted ahead of them. In 2014, people dismissed Davante Adams' incredible production when he was coming out of Fresno State as just being a product of their system. In 2016, Michael Thomas was called too slow after running a 4.57, and even just last year, DK Metcalf tumbled all the way to pick 64 because of all the hysteria surrounding his three-cone drill. Every year, NFL teams find an excuse to push a great receiver into the second day of the draft, and every year, some team gets lucky enough to benefit from the rest of the league's mistakes. This draft season is no different, and at least to me, I think for 2020, that annual sleeper superstar is Baylor wideout Denzel Mims. Mims put on a show at the Combine last week, running sub 4.4 in the 40-yard dash, 38.5 inches in the vert, nearly 11 feet in the broad, and his huge 6'3 frame with 34-inch arms measured out among the best in this entire class. Overall, he really put his natural athleticism on display for everyone to see. But all of those physical gifts really aren't the reason why I think Mims is going to be a star in the league, because just athleticism alone doesn't translate to production in the NFL. What does translate, though, is everything else that Mims brings to the table when you watch him on tape. The physicality, the intelligence, the ball skills, the route running savvy. He's not just a physical freak, he's a well-coached, refined physical freak. And those kinds of receivers are usually the ones that end up having great careers. When you look at how he was used at Baylor, oftentimes Matt Rule's staff tried to exploit the biggest advantages that Mims had over every DB in the Big 12. Size, length, and ball skills. Again, at 6'3" with extremely long arms, Mims' catch radius was monstrously large, and when he was given one-on-ones outside, Baylor QB Charlie Brewer often just had to read the leverages and technique of whatever DB was covering him so that he could throw it up to the right spot and let Mims do the rest. If the corner was stacking on top of Mims from a bail technique because he was scared of his speed, like on this play against UTSA, then Brewer would just leave the ball on Mims' back shoulder away from that defender where he had no shot to get it, and obviously with Denzel's ball skills, he could tiptoe on the boundary and make that catch 9 times out of 10. In fact, some of the best catches of the entire college football season by any receiver last year were from Mims working his magic on back shoulder fades where he could make up for shaky passes with his acrobatic skills. That being said though, because of Mims' natural explosiveness and speed, he wasn't just a jump ball or back shoulder threat along the boundaries. He was much more than that. And when corners started to sit down in their technique more rather than stacking way over the top of the route in an effort to discourage those back shoulder throws, Mims had the acceleration to just go win deep and have Brewer lead him further down the field instead. That's where that aforementioned 4.3 speed came into play, obviously. Make no mistake about it, his size, explosiveness, and length combination is a very difficult problem for any corner to handle because no matter what they do, they almost can't be right. And that's going to be just as true for Mims in the NFL as it was for him in college. Either those DBs stack the route to play the deep ball and potentially get bullied on the sideline, or they aggressively play the threat of those back shoulder throws and potentially get burned over the top if they don't have the speed to keep up. It's really hard to deal with, and that's why in the past you saw receivers like Jordy Nelson, AJ Green, and Randy Moss make a living off that exact same playstyle. Just like Nelson, Green, and Moss though, as I said earlier, Mims is still a complete receiver that can win in more ways than just fades. In fact, he's a very good route runner overall that already has a variety of releases and little tricks of the trade mastered that will help him hit the ground running against veteran corners next season. Whether it's having a nice little quick 3 release that he uses to freeze corners that are in off-man coverage, or the pure physicality that he plays with down in the red zone to overwhelm press corners and throw them all over the yard, or some of the subtle ways that he uses his arm length to keep vertical separation late in route so that he can win on deep balls, he just flat out gets it. He doesn't just play the receiver position like a lot of other prospects his age, he understands the receiver position. And as a side note, since I know I'm going to get a lot of comments on it, yes, DBs are going to bitch a lot and say that he's always committing pass interference when he tosses them around, which technically may be true. His playstyle is ultra physical after all, kind of in the mold of a DeAndre Hopkins or a Michael Irvin. But the refs didn't call all of this on Irvin back in the day, and they certainly don't call it as much as they probably should on Hopkins either, so I can almost guarantee you that Mims will be fine as well if he continues to play this way throughout his career. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of great receivers have made a lot of money by treating routes like a moving boxing match, and I expect Mims to continue that tradition. I also expect him to continue developing in the mental side of route running too, where he's already shown considerable growth when it comes to setting up corners to bite on releases and putting themselves way out of position. Take this example from the Texas game late in the third quarter. It's about halfway through the drive where Mims is isolated as the X receiver, and he's just running a slant against press alignment here. Now, slants are a bit tricky to run against press because the corner doesn't really give you any space to work with to make that cut inside, so using a good release is important to either create that space for yourself or to get the corner to flip his hips the wrong way and be unable to recover inside. Mims uses what's called a dead leg release here to accomplish that, which I guess is sort of similar to a diamond release and a shuffle release, but not quite the same thing. A dead leg release is a bit different because you're slow playing the corner off the snap, keeping your hips square with him, but having your feet staggered rather than also squared up. And what those staggered feet do is give Mims an easy two-way go against an inside leveraged corner. And that lets him either immediately go down the field where he can drive off that lead foot to gain ground on a go route, or if a slant is called, because that trail foot is so far back, he can lead with that instead at a really flat angle to run that slant. And the corner obviously doesn't know which route is coming, so the dead leg release can help to freeze them in place and open up either route. Now, beyond just the good footwork here, Mims also does a nice job of controlling the corner's inside hand with the slap and chop on his wrist so that he can't grab a hold of his jersey and slingshot himself into recovering on the route. And that combination of frozen feet and no hand contact from the DB leads to Mims being wide open on the slant. Or at least he would have been open if a linebacker didn't drop into his throwing lane, but you get the point. Mims beat this corner off the line and showed what he could do with that dead leg release, which then led to an opportunity for an even bigger play a few snaps later. This was at the end of that same drive against the same corner from the same alignment, and again Mims brings that right foot up into a staggered position like he's about to run the same slant off the dead leg. But this time he doesn't totally square up his hips and slow play the release, and instead he just loads off that inside foot and explodes down the field immediately before the corner can really read what he's doing. The defender leveraged himself really far inside because he was so concerned about that slant, and he never even tried to jam the release because he didn't want Mims to chop it away like he did last time. So that previous win on the slant inside basically ensured that Mims would get a free, uncontested release outside on the go route. And when you get a 6'3 receiver that runs 4.38 and has great ball skills getting a free release down the sideline, well, you can kind of guess the result from there. These are the kinds of plays that Mims can create with his intelligence, instincts, and veteran savviness rather than just with his physical gifts. And trust me when I say that his intelligence and instincts really are his best traits because they amplify everything else that he has in his toolkit. Whoever gets to coach him in the NFL is going to love him. I don't have a single doubt in my mind about that because he works hard, he's coachable, he truly enjoys the physicality of the game, and even on plays where he's not the focus, like runs and screens, he blocks his ass off to make sure that his teammates can be as successful as possible. I mean, I don't know how anybody could watch this guy on tape and not imagine him being a fan favorite from day one because there's really not that much you can knock him for. Is he as fast as Henry Ruggs? No. Are his hands as good as CeeDee Lamb or T. Higgins? Probably not. Is Jerry Jeudy still a better route runner at this point in their careers? Definitely. But just because Mims isn't the best at any one thing doesn't mean that he won't be the most well-rounded receiver out of all of them. Just look at some of the most famous second-round slides in recent years, and look at where they ended up. Davante Adams went to Green Bay and became an elite receiver that had an elite quarterback. Michael Thomas went to New Orleans and immediately became the top target for the most prolific passer of all time. DK Metcalf went to Seattle and put up the same numbers as a rookie that Julio Jones did back in his debut season in Atlanta. This is not a new trend. In the second round, good receivers will go to great teams, and great teams can turn good receivers into all pros. Does that mean that Mims will be an elite wideout one day? I mean, I can't say for sure, obviously, but he's probably going to go to a good team that recognizes his talent, that can see how damn smart he is, and how hard he works not just for himself, but for everyone else in his offense. We've seen this happen over and over and over again to the point where I can almost call it when I see it. Denzel Mims is a fantastic football player, and whether he gets drafted high or not, I know it deep down in my bones that in 2020, he's going to go from sleeper to superstar. Thank you for watching this week's episode, and thank you as well again to our sponsor, Manscaped, the only men's brand dedicated to our all-important below-the-waist grooming and hygiene. They just wanted to let you guys know that Manscaped just launched the Lawnmower 3.0 recently. They spent a year and a half on R&D just for this trimmer, and it shows. Especially for me, because I've used the 2.0 for well over a year now myself, and I can really tell a difference. It comes with a new 7,000 RPM motor that still has their skin-safe technology on their ceramic blades, so I can attest that I did not cut myself on it. Their new lithium-ion battery lasts for up to 90 minutes on one charge. God help you if you need all 90 of those minutes, but it's there if you do, so good luck with that, I guess. There's a no-slip grip handle, adjustable trimmer guards, a built-in LED light so that you can see exactly what you're doing down there. I mean, it's got every feature you could ever want in a trimmer, especially for your body. And of course, with the release of the Lawnmower 3.0, Manscaped has also released the Perfect Package 3.0, which is a discounted package that includes the lawnmower, an anti-chafing ball deodorant, a ball toner and refresher, 3 shaving mats, a travel and storage bag, and a pair of anti-chafing boxers, all for just $90, which is about a $70 discount, a 43% markdown, so that's still a great deal. And again, Manscaped just has a huge variety of men's grooming products available for whatever you want or need. They are a one-stop shop kind of brand, so check them out at the link in the description below. And if you like anything that you see, enter promo code BrettK20 for an additional 20% savings on your order, plus free shipping, plus those 2 free gifts that I mentioned, all from Manscaped.com. Again, thank you to Manscaped for sponsoring this week's show. I hope you guys liked it, and make sure to check back later this week for another Film Room episode. I think that one's probably going to be on UCLA corner Darnay Holmes, who is a personal favorite of mine. And I've also got some other really cool news coming up about some new projects that I'm working on too, so stay tuned for that as well. We've got a lot of stuff coming out in the months leading up to the draft, and I'm sure you're going to like hopefully at least most of it. So I'll be back in a few days with another Film Room episode, again, likely on Darnay Holmes. And until then, later.